Hey friends, welcome to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. The title of this episode is Overcoming Mom Burnout, and I am so excited. We are speaking with Jill Wright, who is a mindset mentor, time management guru, and an alignment coach for moms who are looking to reconnect with themselves. Jill, it is such an honor to have you on. I'm really excited to dive into this topic. I know mommy burnout is something that I experience so often. But before we dive into the topic today, can you get the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to connect with you and all the mamas listening. It's funny because I got to where I am now because of Mom Burnout. Like that is such a perfect title for this show. So for me, it all kind of started to come to the surface at the beginning of the pandemic because I had like a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, and I had just left my corporate gig and I was launching my first real entrepreneurial endeavor, which was to be opening up a consignment store in my town. I didn't want to commute back and forth from downtown anymore. I had the 2 babies. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Went to business school and I always knew that I would do something with that. And then the pandemic hit, right? And I was having an unexpected closure of daycares, right? And the opening of my store kept getting pushed back because there were these sort of like rolling close downs and we didn't know what was happening. And I was so deep in postpartum depression and anxiety. And my son was just diagnosed with autism at the same time. And so what I thought was going to be like a one-man show for my shop ended up being me having to hire 4 employees because I had to run back and forth for all of his appointments now that I had, this kid who needed a whole lot of stuff. Anyway, so it was wild. And so I was completely overwhelmed. I was completely burnt out. I had guilt on guilt on guilt for not being able to be present in all of the things I really wanted to do. And then guilt for feeling guilty that I wanted to prioritize my business somewhere in there and myself, right? So I kind of decided I sort of had this dark night of the soul, this moment where I was like, okay, no one's coming to save you. Like no one can even literally come in your house. So you need to do this by yourself, right? Oh God. And so I dove really deep into personal development and I just took control of my mindset and I figured out how to make things work for me as a working mom because what I was learning about and what I was being taught from these sort of like mentors and teachers and gurus on these subjects I was interested in pursuing, like goal setting and time management and habits. They were all geared towards these old white guys with no kids and, no real job. And I couldn't figure it out. So I twisted it all for moms. And that's sort of how I landed on the work that I do now.
No, that's awesome. It's so true. Mom burnout and then the guilt factor are like 2 things that we carry on our shoulders. Cause I know for me, I feel guilty working on the things that I want to do as well, So
Totally.
first off, how can we avoid the burnout as a working mom?
Well, the first thing for sure is to create space for your own self within the life that you have, right? Because we can't change our external circumstances. All we can really do is start with our mindset. And for me, that means creating space in your mind before you create, that will lead to creating space in your life. So you need to have small pockets throughout the day to start to practice getting good at just being present with where you are, taking those moments of like, okay, deep breaths. I have no one speaking for like, maybe it's 30 seconds, right? Depending on where you're at in your mom journey. But okay, I have a few minutes to myself. Maybe it's in the shower. How can I practice some gratitude right now? Right? Get yourself centered. And the more that you do that, the more that you can sort of be in your body and connect in with what's happening in your own brain, rather than listening to everything around you, the more aligned you're going to feel and the more confident you're going to feel to say, I'm going to take, 5 minutes to myself here. These kids are good. Or I'm going to book myself that coffee date with my friend that I've been meaning to get together with. And it's going to be okay that the kids have to be with someone else while I go. And you'll start to work in the physical space into your day, which is going to break things up in a way that banishes the overwhelm because you're getting these little pockets of relief throughout the day.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like just giving yourself the moment to recenter. And it's not, sometimes it's not going to feel like it's working like the first time you do it. Like you have to
Yeah.
continue to do it. It's like habit over time. And then you're going to master it and you're going to be able to feel that like centered feeling the more you continue to do it. So it's like, don't give up on yourself if you do it one time and then you kind of walk back out to the scene with your kids and you kind of still feel a little frazzled, you know? Because I don't know, that's how
Mhm.
I felt. Like I felt like it took me a while to get to that point, you know, like, okay, I did it once. I feel a little bit better. And then the more I did it, the better I felt. And the more that feeling lasted throughout the day. I mean, that's
Yes.
just my personal opinion.
No, you're right. It's like a muscle, right? And
Mhm,
just like with anything, consistency is the key. And
mhm,
sometimes you have to like fake it till you make it a little bit until it becomes like when you first start doing it, it's the job of your conscious mind, right? Like it's still something that you have to intentionally do. But the more that you do it, eventually your subconscious mind takes that over and it becomes like breathing or making your heart pump. Like it just becomes something that you don't think about anymore after you've done it for a while. It becomes this automatic habit or way of living.
mhm.
Um, and then when you get there, that's when the magic really happens. But it has to be intentional and it's not easy, you know? It's really not.
And I know also like a lot of people, when they become a mom, especially first time mom, they lose themselves in motherhood. Kind of like, actually, what do I like to do? Kind of like your interests change. You know, some people experience like the postpartum depression, which is like a very hormonal imbalance. You know, you're just not feeling yourself. And then sometimes when you do have that moment for yourself, it's like, well, what do I even want to do? What does outside of being a mom looks like? So, what are some ways that we can reconnect with ourselves outside of the role of mom? Because I know I struggled with that. Like, what do I even like to do? What does Cristina like to do? Because Cristina, before mom, doesn't like to do those things anymore.
Right. 100%. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because we all experience it in our own way and nobody really openly talks about it. It's like we all just forgot who we were conveniently. And it's like, well, how do I find that person? Like she was cool. I liked her, you know? But you don't feel like her anymore. So it's a bit of a disconnect. But um, for me, honestly, like making a list was where I started because
Okay.
I'm a list girl. I love a good list. And if it's not written down, I'm going to forget it. And so I was like, okay, as I go through my day and I see something on TV that I'm like, oh, I wish I had time for that, or somebody does something for me or buys me, who knows, even if it's a candle or I'm walking by a store and I see something, I make sure to write those things down, these little sparks of joy. And then whenever I have a few minutes, I'll review that list, right? And I'm like, oh, yes. Okay. How can I work that into my day? And then I work it in my calendar. And so I take every week a different color pen for like Jill stuff, whether it's self care or working things in that make me feel like me or like non mom things in my calendar. And I
Mm-hmm.
make sure that there's at least one thing a week in that special color that's just for me. And if I'm having a lack of motivation or inspiration, I have this list to kind of go back to and it's constantly growing, which is so fun.
Yeah, no, that's a really great idea. Just like to write down like this tiny moments in your day that sparked joy or happiness, because we do end up forgetting like the simple candled gift or just whatever it is that you had mentioned or whatever it is for someone. You know, it's very
Yeah.
true. We do forget like, oh, like I liked that. Like I'm going to light this candle and I'm going to run a bath when the kids are
Hmm.
asleep, you know?
Hmm.
And I know sometimes like, and I know for me, this is something that's hard is, you know, feeling like guilty, like scheduling time for yourself, like going out with your friends or, you know, dinner with your partner, whatever it is, or working on your career, you know, even me starting this podcast, I'm like, God, I feel guilty doing it, but I'm like, I need something. I need an outlet. I need to
Yeah.
talk to other adults. I need to learn self-improvement things myself. So how can we overcome like that guilt that we feel when we do take that time for ourselves?
Yeah. You're so right. Because the first couple times we do it, we feel guilty that we're doing it. We don't even enjoy that time that we've taken.
Yeah, we're
And
like
we're like, bah,
thinking about like, are they
not worth it.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah. And you worry about the caretaker, like, are they okay? Like, is everything going to be all right? It's not necessarily just the kid. It's like you worry about who's helping you. Couple things. I mean, there's so much, but top of mind, the first couple things that come up for me are trust that it's okay to ask for help and work that muscle, right? Because there are, for many of us, not all certainly, but for many of us, there are people in our life who are overjoyed to be able to spend time with our kids, and it's not a burden to them like it is to us at the end of a long day. Not that our kids are a burden, but let's face it, like sometimes they're a freaking
It's
burden,
hard.
right?
Yeah, no, it's
uh
hard. They're little
in a
demanding
beautiful way.
children,
Yes.
you know.
So like remembering that just because you need a break from them, the other people in your life are looking to come and fill your shoes. And so you can remove that sense of guilt knowing that A, your kids with someone who loves them, and B, you're giving a gift to that person
Mm-hmm.
and giving them the time, right? So that's where I sort of like to start in terms of like, well, who's looking after the kid when you're going away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or doing your thing or whatever you're doing. Another thing in terms of the guilt is I always tell people to stop comparing in terms of what they think that they can be doing or should be doing versus what they see the other moms in their community doing, what they see the moms on social doing, right? Just because some other moms, it goes both ways too. Like if you're seeing moms sort of playing the martyr on social media and, oh, everything is hard, everything is bad, this sucks, I never get a break, then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have a break either. Like this is
Yeah.
hard. I shouldn't. But then if you see the mom who's going out and she's like, yes, this is fantastic, I've taken some time for myself, my kids are all good, you're like, oh, maybe I should be doing that, right? And you're always unsure. There's so much information coming in on what you should feel guilty about and what not,
Mm-hmm.
as compared to all of the stimulation that you're getting. And so I like to remind people, like, you know best what's going to work for you and your family. You know best what you need. And so if you need to, like, take a little social media break, get yourself back in line with what you know to be true and that feels good for you, and start from there. Because taking time for yourself, it doesn't have to start big. Like, I think with no matter what we do as women specifically, but especially as moms, we always think we need to go from like A to Z right away, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, you can go to B first. You can take like 5 minutes by yourself, in the bedroom for your coffee, and that's still time away. And you practice not feeling guilty. So those are some good places to start.
Yeah, that's so true. The comparison is, I think, what we all do, and it's not healthy. And the social media thing, really does, because people like to paint the picture of everything's perfect sometimes. And then, like you said, there's like the martyr who's like, everything is so hard. And you're like, well, I'm just, cruising, trying to balance. Like it's hard, but we're managing. So, I just know that because like we even compare like, oh, this child's talking, but my child's not talking. They're walking, they're not walking. Oh my God, is something wrong? And we do get information overload. And I just don't think like we're meant as human beings to be getting so much information all at once. Like it was never like
Mm-hmm.
that until like, the 21st century came around. So it's like a whole new world, even for our children. But, I totally agree that comparing is something that you should try not to do. Take a social media break. Hey friends, I hope you are enjoying this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. This podcast would not be possible if it wasn't for the support of you, my wonderful community. To support Your Mama's podcast, please click the support link right down below and you can donate just as little as 99 cents. Also, follow me in the Shop Like to Know It app where you can follow me with all my exclusive content, all the way from baby products I love, fashion and style, and everything in between. Now let's get back to the episode. What else is something that a mom can implement right now in her life to alleviate, negative thoughts of comparing, of the mom guilt, having, just feeling more balanced in her everyday life?
That's a good one. Where to start? Where to go with that one? I think a really good place to go in terms of mindset, because that's where it all kind of stems from, right? It
Mhm.
all comes back to how you can change the narrative in your head. And the thing that I always ground myself back to, if I'm feeling like I'm spinning out, if I'm feeling like guilt is overwhelming me and stopping me from doing things for myself, if I feel like I'm burning out, is that my kids and, your kids and everybody's kids in general need a happy mom. They don't need a mom who's 100% present. They don't need a mom who is doing everything perfectly. What they need is an example of a strong woman who is able to know her boundaries, who
Mm-hmm.
is able to take time for herself and show the importance of that. I'm really big on modeling for our kids. Like, we're really lucky in this generation. We have a lot of things that are at our disadvantage for us, specifically like information overload and all the tech stuff, but we have so much knowledge in terms of how to better sort of like go through life in a soulful way and
Mm-hmm.
treat ourselves well. And so modeling that information for our kids that we didn't have as kids can be so powerful. And showing them like, yeah, mommy got mad and it's, I'm sorry that I yelled or whatever. Apologies. You can apologize to kids, you
Yeah,
can
I
show
do
them
that.
like
I do that.
it's amazing. And then like I do that. And then my 3-year-old the other day was out of the blue, like, mommy, I'm sorry that I yelled yesterday. It wasn't kind. And I'm like, oh my God, it's fine. We all yell, like, but they start to pick those things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just remembering that by being human and by being authentic and letting your kids sort of see the good, bad, and the ugly, and see you take time for yourself and see you take breaks and whatever you need to realign yourself, that's only benefiting them. So
Yeah.
that mindset shift is one that I keep close.
And it's important for them to understand that feelings are okay and to have like
Mm-hmm.
the feelings of anger or whatever is totally normal. But how do we handle that? Because I think one of the hardest things in life is emotions, especially if you have like the jealousy or the anger and the rage, like dealing
Mm-hmm.
with that and how to process that, even as like adults, like people as adults have a hard time doing that. And I think that's probably one of the main life lessons we all go through is like, how do we handle ourselves emotionally in situations? And I think it only benefits the children if we model good examples. Like something bad happens, how does mom or dad react? Like, is dad flailing and having a huge fit over something and showing like a temper tantrum? Like, that's not modeling good behavior, So we need to model behavior. Like something happened, how do we show it? We breathe and we just try to solve it and problem solve and talk about it, whatever works for you and your family. But I think it's important that we model, good behavior emotionally for our children. It'll only set
Mm-hmm.
them up for success and how to handle that life's challenges. And, life is a mental game. Like it really
Yeah.
is. Like it's all about your perspective. How you see the world is how the world's going to see you. So it's really important that we model that great behavior. So I think that's a really great idea. And so you also were talking about like design. We were talking about like design a nighttime routine, kind
Mm,
of help you make you feel refreshed. Like, do you want to give like an example of something like that?
I love this. So a nighttime routine is my favorite thing ever because I was so discouraged when I couldn't figure out a morning routine, because that's like the key, to a successful day. They say is like everyone successful has this morning routine. It normally
Exactly.
consists of like getting up at 5, having a green smoothie, working out, doing gratitude, like meditating,
Meditating. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
My
And I'm
kids wake
like,
up
well,
at
my
5.
kid wakes up at 5. Totally. And they still do. They're 4 and 6 and they still wake up at 5. And so like I would have been waiting years and years for the opportunity, right? And I'm not
Yeah.
waking up at like 3:30 or 4 in the morning to do these things for myself. I
Yeah.
refuse to do that. So I,
Yeah.
I had to find a way to like fit those things in the day. And I decided once the kids go to bed, I'm going to take my time then and do it. And it's such a nice way to wind down from the day, but
Mm-hmm.
also you finished all of your things, your cup is full, you're feeling relaxed. And then you can get a beautiful night's sleep before you tackle the next day, right? You're not finishing a morning routine and then jumping into the chaos. Like you're finishing a nighttime routine and you're resting well, and then you're waking up and you're getting the benefit of the work that you did for yourself in the nighttime routine, as well as a good night's sleep before you start your next day. So I really love that. Like for me, I change it up often, but I always do some sort of gratitude. I always make sure I take care of like washing my face and brushing my teeth and like setting up my clothes for the next day, like all the things that will either, if I don't do them, make me feel like garbage when I wake up or make me feel rushed. Like I take
Mhm.
care of future Jill as part of the routine. And I always make sure that I'm taking a break from technology and picking up a book or like um, doing some meditation or something. And it doesn't take long,
Yeah.
but just little pieces like that for me. Some of my clients will do like drawing or they'll do, if they like to write, some of them. So they do some journaling or it can be whatever. Someone has a cup of tea and puts on like a face mask, like whatever it is for you, just take some time at the end of the day. And it's so rewarding to do it then.
Yeah, I know I tried do the morning thing, but my kid wakes up at 5 and he's like, come color with me
Yep.
now. And it's like, okay, I guess I'm coloring at 5 in the morning, while the baby still
Mm-hmm.
sleeps and he's like gonna be up any moment. But it's a good way. It's like if you can't do the morning routine, try the nighttime routine, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people, it's like, I can't wake up any earlier than I do.
No.
So, I mean, I think you can be just as successful having a nighttime routine. Like, and you don't have to do the morning thing because some people are like, oh, I can't do it in the morning. My kids wake up early. And it's like, well, then do the night. Like
Yeah.
there's always a way around it.
Totally. Like do it on your lunch break or find like pockets of time, 5 minutes here to do the one piece of it, 5 minutes here to do the other piece of it. Like it all counts.
Yes.
Like we
Yeah.
don't have to adhere to anyone else's set schedule of what it should look like. I hate that should. Ugh, I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we just things like you said, like we live in that comparison world and like, oh, this mom gets to do it and does it, like, and I can't do it. Like, and then we start doubting ourselves. And it's just like, no, you just got to do what's right for you, and that's going to look different for everybody. We all have
Mhm.
different goals, different outcomes we want, different needs. And we just got to realize that like our needs are just as important and just as cool or just as inspiring as like someone else's needs that we see like on the social media or our friends or whatever. We just have to give ourselves grace and it's okay to have those moments of feeling defeated or struggling and just know though that this will pass, and then you're going to have those highs. There's life is like a roller coaster. You're going to have your highs and you're going to have your lows.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jill, I've loved this conversation and I have 4 questions and I can't wait to know what your answers are that I give all my guests. So my first one is who and what inspires you?
Okay. So who inspires me? The first one that comes to mind is Rachel Hollis. And she sort of was the one who got this all going for me. She was my entry point into this world. And so I have a really special spot for her. But the reason I really like Rachel is that she is messy, and she's kind of just raw and will say the things that nobody else wants to talk about and is willing to change perspectives and willing to say she was wrong and willing to keep growing for the sake of growing. So
Yeah.
that is super inspiring for me. Um, and moms inspire me just in general. Moms inspire me because we are warriors and we have so much we add so much beauty to the lives of others and just sort of raise the vibration of the world just by being here. So for
Exactly.
me that's a super inspiring role.
Yeah, so true. We are like women are like unstoppable. Like we work, we take care of the family, we make things magical for the kids. We even worry about like the cousins and the nephews and everyone's birthdays and just managing everything. Like we really are pretty badass.
Yes. Yes, we are.
So my second question is, what is something that you wished you knew when you were younger?
Not everyone's gonna like you.
Yeah.
I really thought when I was young that it was my job to make sure everyone liked me. And I don't recall the exact moment when it kind of clicked like, no, that's not how it rolls. And it's not supposed to. Like everyone's got their own preferences of what type of person they enjoy interacting with. Like maybe I'm too quiet for some, like maybe some people don't like nice people. That was a hard one for me. I'm like, some people just don't like nice people. And I'm trying and trying and trying to be so nice, but it doesn't matter because some people just aren't into that. So to be able to tell myself, like, just be you early on, because you can't control what other people are going to think, and not everyone is supposed to like you. That would have saved me a lot of stress, I think.
Yeah, me too. I feel the same way.
It's
I'm like,
wild.
why doesn't anyone like me? But it's like, no, it's so true. It's like, and then being okay with rejection,
Hmm.
like loving yourself, to being like, okay, I was rejected, but like, I still have love for myself. Like, I know that's something that I'm still working on myself,
Yeah.
but being okay with rejection and knowing too that boundaries are going to hurt people's feelings. So if like someone has a boundary of things of
Yes.
like whatever it's going to hurt your feelings, as well as like when you have a boundary with someone else, it's going to hurt their feelings. So understanding that as well as something that can help with like the feeling rejected type of thing.
I
Um,
love that.
so the third question I have is, what's the essential part of your daily routine?
Ah, for sure, it is my nap. And it's not a daily, but it is a weekly. And like my kids don't nap anymore, but I still have my nap. So anytime I can work from home, and anytime, like on the weekends for sure, especially when the kids are around, like my nap is essential. And sometimes that nap is just 10 minutes and I don't sleep, but it's time just for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a reset, it's a refresh. It is so important and has become such an essential part of my day.
Yeah, no. Sometimes just closing your eyes, just get that little like recharge. Like even if you're not sleeping, but just kind of like
Yeah.
laying there in like meditated mode, like it's nice.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so my fourth question is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Hmm. Yes, this is a good one. Let me think on this for a second, because I want to make sure that the right words come through for someone who needs to hear these today. The best advice I've ever received. What's top of mind right now is two things, and they're both from my mom. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, always told my mom, don't try to keep up with the Joneses, because the Joneses are just going to move on you. So for me, what I get from that is, if you're just going through life trying to be someone else, trying to have what other people have just for the sake of it, whether you want it or not, trying to do the things like spending money that you don't have, or maybe you have it, but that's not really what you love, right? Spending your time, energy, and money on things that you don't love is
Mm-hmm.
not going to serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And the second one is, it's better to be ready and not to go than to go and not be ready. So for me, I always, always want to be prepared for what I'm heading into. And if it doesn't happen, it's fine. But I love making sure that wherever I can, I go into something prepared and ready to show up fully.
That's good. Yeah, you don't want to like half-ass it. So, do you have any last words before we say goodbye today? Anything that you want the audience to take away?
I think just that it's normal to feel the way you're feeling. It is totally okay if you're in the spot where you're feeling burnout, where you're feeling guilt, where you're feeling overwhelmed and probably loss of control over like all areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it. It's not any of our favorite parts, but that is part of it. This journey of motherhood. And it's okay to sit with those feelings, because that's the way through it. That's
Yeah,
the way through. Yeah.
exactly. You got to feel it, work through it, and then it'll pass, and then you'll feel good.
Well,
That's a good advice. Well, Jill, thank you so much for coming on this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. All of her links are down below in the show notes. Don't be shy, go say hi. And I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Thank you.